Hello, everyone, and welcome to Innovation in Podcast, where we explore the people, processes, and tools behind product innovation. I'm your host, Nolan Myers. I'm here today with John Carter, founder and principal at TCGen. Hi, John. How
Hi,
are you today?
very good.
Great. Well, today we're talking about schedule prediction accuracy, and we're going to be sharing with you a tool that we've developed here to help you see your schedule and see the accuracy of it and how that evolved over time. So what we're going to show is a tool today that basically it creates a chart for you that allows you to see how your schedule evolved over time. We like to think of this as kind of a Gantt chart with memory. So basically what you're seeing is the expectation of the schedule and how it changed. And so where this is most useful is there are two ways that this can be most useful to you. One is in a retrospective, where you're looking back at a project and trying to understand how that project evolved and where things went right or wrong. And you can see the changes in expectation over time and see how does that relate to the event timeline of the project. And the second is that it's actually very powerful as a predictive measure of success on a project, because while you're in it, you can see as things are evolving, and it helps you gain either confidence. It provides the data that helps you gain the confidence that the schedule is going to be met, or bolsters your skepticism that it's not going to be met and allows you to intervene and take corrective action there. So it can be powerful both in a retrospective and in a predictive kind of way. So what we want to do today is give you a brief tour of the tool and then some examples of how it worked. So just starting with the bottom line, what we're seeing here are 4 important milestones in a project and how they evolved over time. So M1 from the start to the time that it was met never changed. Every vertical change represents a change in expectation, either positive or negative in terms of where that date was. So you can say M2 moved along until M1 was done, and then it jumped by a couple of months. So it got postponed a couple of months later and then was met at that time. M2 was delayed all the way till where M3 had initially been expected. And at that same time, while M2 jumped up, M3 only got pushed out by 1 month. So here is a case where the team was really far behind, saw M2 and pushed that out, but made a lesser adjustments to M3 and M4 at that same time. Project went along, M3 hit some snags, and then eventually recovered and came back to its initial expectation. M4 in this case was able to be brought in and ended up about 1 month behind or 2 months behind its initial schedule, just on the side of the graph. So it gives you a quick overview of how these things evolved over time. And the fundamental input to the tool is over here on the left, where we imagine a few snapshots in time and what the dates were of that time. So for instance, we're looking at a project here that spanned about a year, from June of 2019 to February of 2021, a little over a year, maybe a year and a half. And it started in June. And at that time, here were the expectations around those milestones. Come February, this is where you see that change, where M2 jumped about 3 months, M3 jumped 2 months, M4 jumped 2 months. And here you see how that evolved in June and in August of 2020. And then finally around 2021, where they were able to bring in that end date. So that's just a quick overview of the tool and how it works. John, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this and tell me a little bit more about the tool and bring us into some of the examples that you'd like to share.
Yeah, well, this is a super interesting tool and one that we've applied to a lot of engagements, and many of our clients where they've seen it have put it in place. So it's a useful tool that's actually grounded in practice and best practices. So if we look at this particular project, and I think what's interesting to highlight, as you scroll over a bit, is that this is a retrospective view. This is not a current view, because basically this is a history. So if you haven't reached July 1st, 2020, then the rest of the charts to the right would not be filled in because you don't have the data. And so this example here is a great example of a retrospective, and you can kind of see actually history of scheduled pushouts and pushbacks over time, and where there was compression, like you can look at, well, was a QA period compressed, or was it beta or development or high level design or whatever it might be. So it gives you some insight into it. And so retrospectively, it's a great tool for incorporating into your project retrospectives, but also real time. It's very, very useful. Now, in a retrospective basis, it might be the Scrum Master or program manager who puts this together. In real time, the other application where we actually track a live project, typically that is created by the program manager, could be the product manager, could be a Scrum Master, but it's created by someone who basically manages the schedule of the project, or at least understands it. And it is their assertion of their expectations for the project results. And then it's typically presented to a product development committee or product team meeting or some other gathering of managers or senior executives to review the schedule of important programs. And so the added benefit of using it as a real-time tool is the management and executives can actually calibrate their confidence in the team and their ability to actually communicate and anticipate the future. And so it's an opportunity when they start to see chronic changes that there's something going on with the team they don't understand. And so it's a great flag for senior management to look at, well, what's tripping up this team? And it could be factors completely out of control, out of the team's control, that in fact that manager or executive could act on. So we're going to look at the examples we're going to present are all done for retrospectives, but where we've seen the clients benefit the most is actually to have the managers see this coming from the team and to help them be successful.
Yeah, thanks.
So a little color to add to.
And as I publish it to the website, we can also show how you can use it in a predictive way. So I'll make that adjustment as I publish it. You want to take us through one of your examples? Your first one here, flatline.
So this first example, a client called a flatliner. This is essentially, we're not talking agile here where there's changes in the marketplace and so the plan completely changes. But in the case of a good, well-managed product program, you can see that the original schedule never changed. So milestone 1 didn't get pushed out, milestone 2 didn't, milestone 3 didn't, and the final release didn't.
So this one is perfection.
It's perfection, and it was coined a flatliner by our clients, which is in this case a positive.
It's a good thing,
positive term. So this
shows that your team is appropriately sandbagging their dates. And
exactly, and there could be a message there too.
Right?
Yeah, we've seen that. No.
To talk about chronic lateness here, what is this? This one is a very different shaped curve. I see M1 was met. M1 was met right when it was flatlining, so everything looked good, but something went awry, as you can see later.
Yeah. So everything is hunky-dory until 1st of January. People come back from the holidays and they bump out the schedule. So in January, it gets pushed out. Well, the final release date, of course, doesn't move because that would elevate the blood pressure of the managers looking at this.
Right. And I think that's a common thing to point out, right? This is a very common strategy or very common red flag that you can identify immediately in this type of tool is that, hey, we pushed out M2 and M3, but we didn't change M4. And you could ask as a manager, why is that? And your team is going to give you all sorts of explanations, but you can be watching this over time and say, okay, I'm a little skeptical.
Exactly. And unfortunately, who takes it in the shorts is quality because they're the one at the end. So it's the green line when you might start a alpha test or first integrations, that's the one that gets compressed. So it's the finding and fixing of defects that often is the first to go. But
Now
anyway,
this here is the first time we're seeing something where it's kind of hugging this finish line here, right? What does that
right.
mean? How does somebody interpret that?
Right. Well, and this chart is meant to highlight milestones that basically run parallel to the finish line. And the reason that that's so important, like if we look at M2, the red curve, you can see it essentially, from I don't know, May starts basically tracking the finish line. And the reason this is a problem and signals an issue for management is it means the team is incredible, meaning they can't predict a milestone that is only 1 or 2 weeks from being done.
Right. Maybe not credible is a better word than
Yeah.
incredible. But yeah, this is where this is
Not credible.
representative of a period of day for day slip, right? Every day
Correct.
you come back and you push the schedule out one more day. And it's like, well, I'll have it tomorrow. I'll have it tomorrow. I'll have it tomorrow. And that's a common red flag and that many managers will have experienced. But this chart really helps show what's happening visually and give them the data to push back.
Right. And if the team is having problems, they can actually just move the schedule and admit it. It's a much better thing to just communicate the challenge up front than to mismanage expectations. Anyway, this potentially indicates a problem with confidence in the team's ability to communicate to management and their credibility. And the same thing happens with the green milestone 3.
Right.
It suddenly gets within a month of being finished, and then suddenly it starts popping out. And you can see the compression that's going on between the green and the red. Originally, this was it looks like a 2-month or 3-month interval between those. And now the team is proposing a 1 week or 2 week interval because those are so close together. So this it communicates a lot of bad news. And then, of course, it just propagates. The team credibility is low. Their ability to predict the future is low, and management's confidence is low. And ultimately, the final release pushes out too, and they finally do finish the project 2 months late or 3 months late in this example. But this is one we would call chronically late surprises.
Great. And let's talk a little bit about compression here.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. This is a little bit more academic, but I think it gets to the heart of what these are really useful for, because it tells you that certain stages of development do take time, and it is, unless there's research or something new that comes up technically or externally, is deterministic. So what you can
the area,
see,
just to hone in here, you're talking about this area right after January here, right?
Exactly. And so everything is hunky-dory. And then what happens is there's a change. You hit your date with M1, but next month when you do your schedule report to management, you find that the red curve moves out 3 months and the green one, I think, moves out a month. Well, so now there used to be 3 months between them. Now there's 1 month. So that's what we call compression. And that means that stage, it could be, for example, low-level design or some implementation went from 3 months to 1. So how's the team going to pull that off? But anyway, they still planning to ship on time. And then what you find is this compression actually, it needs to be expanded. And so the green curve goes back to the separation it had when it started. So in other words, when the project and this is true of M1, the red curve M2 too, what happened is that basically now you're seeing the project results executing to the original plan. They're just bumped out. They're shifted. So in
And you
fact,
can see the same
compression
mistake
is,
is repeated
yeah,
here, right?
exactly,
They didn't push
exactly.
out M4. They kept M4 right where it was at the time that they delayed M3, and then eventually got caught by it later in the
Right. And so basically the lesson in this chart is when the project pushed out, when that slip occurred with M2 there in looks like February, well, at that point, the project slipped by 3 months. And basically the milestones and the plans that were created are just preserved. They're just shifted 3 months. And so where the colored curves intercept the diagonal is the original schedule that we were on from milestone to release, final release. So this is an example that really highlights the futile game of doing compression, because testing takes time. So
Yeah.
anyway, this is another example.
Well, thank you so much, John. So I wanted to just share a few closing thoughts then as we get into it. We talk about these examples here in this in a very kind of academic way, but the reality is that when you're in the midst of these, there's all sorts of pressures, right? The manager feels the pressure to push things, to keep things as they are. The team feels the pressure to push things out. There's all these competing tensions. And I think that comes back to sort of why the tool can be so useful, because it allows you to step away from those pressures and say what is actually reasonable and feasible, stepping away from the details of what's causing the delay or anything like that. You can just look at the schedule itself, and it tells a story. It can be very helpful to you. So that's where it's like that can be useful in a retrospective, and all the examples we gave were in a retrospective kind of format here, but it's also really powerful as a tool while you're in the midst of it. And all it takes is every week or every 2 weeks, just update and say, what's the current expectation of these dates, of these particular milestones. And when you put that data in, it tells a story that helps you be informed and make good strategic decisions for yourself and for your organization. So thanks very much for watching. We'll put a link to the tool in the description, and would love to hear your feedback. If you apply it, let us know what works, what can be made stronger about it. So thanks.
Yeah, we have a live version, right?
Yeah, absolutely. A live version that you can go and use and try out on your own projects. So, John, thank you so much for your time today and for being with me. And thanks all for tuning in. And please let me know how it goes when you try the tool. Bye-bye.
Bye.